Howdy. Welcome to the Texas A&M University College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Sciences Peer Program's STEM Education Series. Today, Dr. Albert Mulenga will present a sticky problem, tick-borne diseases in humans and animals. Ticks. The word may give you the shivers, but these little arachnids are more than another creepy crawly. They have the potential to spread diseases which may have devastating impacts on both health and economics. Today, Dr. Mulenga will discuss tick-borne diseases of particular relevance, current practices in managing ticks, as well as research aimed to prevent tick-borne diseases altogether. Welcome, Dr. Mulenga.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for joining us this morning to talk about ticks and tick-borne diseases.
You're good.
Oh.
You're ready to go.
Okay. Sorry, I'm new to this, so you forget. My name is Albert Mulenga. I'm a professor in the College of Veterinary Medicine. I went to vet school at the University of Zambia. I did my training in England at the University of Liverpool, where I majored in parasitology. Then I did some additional training at the University of Hokkaido, and I specialized in studying ticks, how the ticks feed, and how they transmit diseases. This morning we're going to talk about the biology, how we can manipulate this biology of ticks to try to control them. So, to start, so what are ticks? Ticks are actually they're considered parasites because they depend on our blood, on animal blood, to survive. So they, as parasites, they may cause diseases directly. There is a difference. There are two types of parasite. There is a parasite which is called an endoparasite, another one which is called an ectoparasite. So the endoparasite, they live inside the host. For ticks, however, they are called ectoparasites because ticks feed outside the host. They live and feed outside our bodies. So that's why they are referred to as ectoparasites. Other examples of ectoparasites include mites. Mites are very tiny. They're very small. We need a microscope to see them. The other one is lice and fleas. We are very familiar with fleas because if you have a dog, you might have seen a flea. It's jumping, and of course, ticks and other mosquitoes as well, and many others. In fact, arthropods, ticks are also members of the arthropod group, and arthropods far outnumber any living organism in the world. So ticks are ectoparasites. They live and feed on the outside of our bodies, as opposed to endoparasites, which live and feed from inside our bodies. So ticks are called arachnids. They are characterized. They are about 3 to 5 millimeters long. There are two types of families. There is the Exodidae, which are referred to as hard ticks, and Agazidae, which are referred to as soft ticks. I'll show you the difference in a minute. There is a third family which is the least studied. It is distributed in Africa. It's called the Natilella family. The ticks have 4 stages of the life cycle. We have the babies. Of course we have the eggs, and then we have the baby ticks, the larvae, And then we have the next stage, the nymph, and then the adult. The larva, the nymph, and the adult, all these three stages feed on blood. Because during the process of feeding on blood, that's when they pick up and transmit human and animal pathogens. So the ticks, of all the arthropods that transmit human and animal diseases, ticks actually transmit the most and diverse number of animal and human pathogens. This is an example of this. In this picture, we can see the difference between the hard and the soft tick. So the hard ticks, they have this structure which is called a scutum, which is in the yellow circle there. And then the soft ticks, they have this leathery structure. The skin is soft. And then this, the third family, the Nutalilidae family, which is only distributed in Africa, is the least studied. Most of the information that we are going to discuss this morning is on ticks. Here are the 4 stages. We have the eggs, and then we have the larva, we have the nymph, and we have the adult. One of the things that you can notice here is the pairs of legs they have. The nymph and the adult, they have 4 pairs of legs, just like the spider. The spider and the scorpion, they have 4 pairs of legs. So the ticks are actually related to spiders and scorpions. But the larva, the baby ticks, they do have only 6 legs. And so if you are out in the woods and you have a tick attached on you, you can tell if you have the larva or the adult or the nymph by just counting the number of legs. One of the ticks feed for a long time. Our ticks feed for a long time. For instance, for example, Amblyomma americanum ticks, the Lone Star ticks, and the black-legged ticks, which transmit most of the human pathogens in the United States, they feed for a long period. And then to prevent from being groomed off by the host, when the tick attaches, it secretes what is called cement. This glue, in this cartoon here, these are the different tick species and different shapes of the cement that they transmit, that they actually secrete, not transmit. So they secrete this glue. It's very, and it attaches them, it anchors them onto the host skin. If you have had an experience of a tick attaching on your skin, you remember how difficult it was to actually detach the tick. It's very, so the cement allows them to remain on our skin without being removed by the host. So ticks are everywhere. So we can find them wherever we go. So they are distributed around the world. And from this perspective, they are very, very important in terms of human public health, transmission of human diseases, and also transmitting of, most importantly, in the tropics. If you go to, say, Africa or South America, ticks are very important in agriculture because they do transmit some of the most important pathogens of livestock, farm animals or food animals. When you come to in the United States, the tick that transmits a disease of cattle, which is called cattle fever, they have been controlled for many years. So that's why in the United States, the importance of ticks is mostly associated with human health. But if you go somewhere else, the animal health becomes the most important. Any questions so far?
Not so far. So far we're with
No
you, but
questions.
no
All right.
questions quite yet.
Yeah, what happened? How is that? Something happened to the slides. This is not happening. Oh, my apologies. There was a technical, there was a mistake there. The slides just jumped to the end of the slide, to the end of my
No
presentation.
problem.
We have a bunch of slides to discuss. I apologize if I lost you. So we're talking about ticks being distributed all over the world. They are very, but if you go to the tropics, where we have the home climates, they flourish there. They are different, a lot of ticks. And if you go to, so in the United States, we have different types of ticks. We have the American dog tick, which the American dog tick transmits a human disease called Rickettsia rickettsii. We also have the black-legged tick. The black-legged tick is very famous for actually transmitting the causative agents of Lyme disease. Lyme disease is one of the most prevalent vector-borne disease of humans that is very, very famous. You might have heard about it in the news. And then the brown dog tick. The brown dog tick is everywhere. You can find the brown dog tick wherever you go in the world, it's there. So as you can see on the map, it's everywhere. And then we do have the Gulf Coast ticks. These are distributed to the southern part of the United States, but their range is expanding. And then we have the Lone Star tick. The Lone Star tick is it has that the female ticks, they do have that characteristic spot on the scutum that you can sight identify. If you go out in the woods and a Lone Star tick female is attached on your skin, you can identify it because it has that unique and characteristic spot. And then we have the Rocky Mountain owl tick. This one is also important in transmission of human and animal diseases. And then we have the Western black-legged tick. So we had the black-legged tick, which is mostly on the East Coast, where it transmits Lyme disease. On the West Coast, we have the Western black-legged tick. They are very related, and they are very important for transmission of the spirochetes that cause Lyme disease. Now, here's a short video to show you how the tick feeds, how the tick lives in the world and finds the host. As this video is playing, I'm going to explain to you how the tick actually finds us. So this, in this video, we have, this is an adult, and these are adult ticks wandering in the woods trying to find the host. As you can see, in there you can see the mouth parts. in that clip, you can see a tick moving around on that grass, trying to position itself on the tip of that grass. So that, and you can see it's waving its legs. That when it's waving its legs, it's sensing. It's trying to see if nearby there, you can see that twitching there. There is an organ which is called the Oller's organ, which senses our presence. So now the tick has actually found the host. Is trying to see, to attach. It's crawling on the skin. It's trying to insert the mouth parts to try to get a blood meal. And it's moving around, trying to find a suitable feeding spot. So after the females, they've taken this blood meal, the legs, as you saw in that other clip. Yeah, those are the mouth parts. You can see those mouth parts. So they use those mouth parts to actually puncture the skin and create a wound in the skin and then suck blood. So that's what is happening when the tick is feeding. As the tick is feeding, that is just, that clip there shows the similarities between the tick and the mosquito. The mosquito feeds for a very short time. The tick feeds for a long time, remains. The mosquito comes, punctures the skin with the proboscis, flies away. The tick stays in place for a long time. That's why the semen that they release allows them not to be groomed off. If the tick is attaching on us, even if we don't notice it, it will go on until it finishes its blood meal. I think that's the is at the end of the clip. Okay, so in that picture, you see that the tick is questing, is waiting for the host. So this is the way this position of the tick on the tip of the grass here is referred to as questing. The tick is questing, is waiting for the host. It's sensing, the Oller's organ is sensing. It detects carbon dioxide and body odors, the heat changes, and motion and vibration. As we are moving around, the ground is vibrating, and we are also emitting carbon dioxide and odors. And those Oller's organ on the tick's legs, they're actually sensing that. And as we get near, we pass by that grass, the tick will latch onto us, and it goes on to actually feed. So the close-up on the specialized mouth parts, we can see they have the chelicerae and so they have the hypostome. The hypostome goes inside the skin, and then the chelicerae, they create a wound by rupturing skin tissue to create a wound, and then when the blood pulls into the wound, the tick sucks up the blood. And then during that process, they also transmit pathogens. So the secretions, the wound that they cause can cause some pain. So what the tick is very smart. What it does is secretes some anesthetics, which numbs the pain. So when the tick is attached on the skin, we can't feel its presence because it's numbing the pain that is producing. And then the cement-like substance that I showed you earlier allows them to attach. So they also secrete anticoagulants. What happens when you cut yourself? When you cut yourself, the blood forms a clot and bleeding stops. However, when the tick starts to feed, when it creates that lesion, the blood does not clot. There is no clotting. The reason why the blood does not clot is because the tick is pumping anticoagulants to stop the blood from clotting. So if the blood had to clot, then the tick will not feed. So some of the research that people are doing, including in my laboratory, we are trying to find out how to stop the tick, to stop some of these proteins from working for the tick. So feeding may last for several days. Let me go back there. Okay, feeding may last for several days, and during that period, we can kill the ticks through several methods. So, during that process of blood meal feeding, the ticks acquire pathogens, disease pathogens. They acquire and also pass them on or transmit. So the saliva, during feeding, ticks secrete saliva, and then the saliva allows the tick to transmit the pathogens and allows the tick to actually feed, because in that saliva there is also anticoagulants and anesthetics. So as they are pumping saliva into the host, the pathogens take advantage of that process and they go into the host. Now, here's the list of human tick-borne diseases. Did you know that in the United States, some of the most important human diseases that are acquired from arthropods are actually transmitted by ticks? The majority are from ticks. So here's the list. This is a list that is maintained by the CDC, by the Centers for Disease Control. If you go there, and they develop these maps that are updated every so often. So you can see, if you go to the CDC, you can see the distribution where around in the United States where that a particular disease has been highly reported. In this map, this slide, I'm showing you there are 16 diseases, human vector-borne diseases. So vector-borne diseases, these are diseases that are derived from an infectious arthropod bite. So when an insect or a tick bites you and it's carrying a disease agent, and then after some time becomes sick, that is called a vector-borne disease. Now, in the United States, there are at least 16 of these that if a doctor had to diagnose it, they have to report it. They are notifiable. Of those 16, 6 are tick-borne. And what is interesting, you can see that if you combine all the vector-borne diseases in the United States, you'd see that the majority of them are tick-borne. So from that standpoint, in the human health perspective, tick-borne diseases are very important to public health in the US. And the other map, the map here just shows a combination of all the tick-borne diseases that have been reported in the United States, and you can see that they are very concentrated on the eastern seaboard. That's where the majority of the tick-borne diseases have been reported. But if you look closely on this map, you'll see that the situation is actually expanding westward. So one of the most prevalent tick-borne diseases in the United States is called Lyme disease, which is transmitted by the black-legged tick on the east coast, and then the western black-legged tick on the west coast. And here, what you see in this slide, you see the different stages, the life stages. We have the larva, the baby tick, which has 6 legs, and then we have the next life stage, which is called a nymph, And then for the adult, we have the male, and we have the female. When the ticks are feeding, the male just takes a little bit of blood, just enough to get enough energy to fertilize the female. The male ticks don't really feed a lot of blood. Only the females. The female ticks feed on blood, and they are responsible for moving pathogens around in nature. But in the case of Lyme disease, this is moved by the larva. The black-legged tick feeds on different animals. So the larva picks up the infection from the rodents, and then the larva, that disease passes on to the nymph, and then the nymph feeds on humans, and the nymph delivers the disease to us. So the causative agent of Lyme disease is a bacteria called Borrelia burgdorferi. And the classic signs are fever, headache, and fatigue, and rash. So the fever and headache and fatigue could be misconstrued for just maybe a cold or some other ailments that cause similar conditions. But over time, that the bacteria can go to joints and cause inflammation there. And also can affect the nervous system.
I have a quick question for you,
Yes.
Dr. Mulenga, before
Yes.
you move on with that. As you were talking about the male and female ticks, some of our students would like to know, how can you tell the difference between male and female ticks?
Good question. So the male ticks, there is what is called the scutum. I showed you a scutum before. In male ticks, the scutum covers the whole dorsal surface. The dorsal surface of the male is covered. The scutum covers the whole dorsal surface, the whole back area. In females, however, as you can see in this tick here in this picture, the scutum is covering only a third of the back. So based on the size of the scutum, you can sex them out like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And some people I've heard refer to that as a shield.
Yes,
almost.
shield. Yes, shield.
So that,
Actually, scutum is to school something. Is something that you talk about in school. It's a shield.
yes.
So the shield is in males covers the whole back area, whereas in females it just covers a third of the back area.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now
Yeah.
you know.
And then the Lyme disease is one of the most important tick-borne diseases in the U.S. because there's at least 300,000 cases that these are the estimates that of illnesses each year. Every year, about 300,000 people become sick with a Lyme disease. Some of the people become sick. If there is early diagnosis, they can be treated with antibiotics if it is diagnosed. But sometimes the diagnosis doesn't happen very quickly, and there is chronic. The infection persists, and then there is arthritis and other complications associated. So here's a map of showing the CDC keeps these maps every year of all reported tick-borne diseases. This map here just shows cases that were reported in 2012. And if you look at those, the reported cases, you can see that the number of Lyme disease cases have been rising, and the geography where the cases are being reported is expanding. So we started with 2012, and you can see the color consistency shows the changing shows the numbers of Lyme disease cases increasing. That's 2016. How do we just before I talk about this slide, you can see the picture that we have here is for Amblyomma americanum, the female tick of Amblyomma americanum, the lone star tick. So this tick you can actually sight identify. This is a female. This is a female Amblyomma americanum. It has this characteristic white spot. So how do you prevent disease? If you are going out, you're going camping, you're going to play in the woods, how do you make sure that you don't come back with something that you didn't want to have? Reduce exposure. So how do you reduce exposure? There are ways on how to prevent ticks from attaching on you. Where you make sure you wear long pants when you are going in the woods, and also to check it, if we've gone camping, to at least if you didn't go by yourself, somebody can check if you have some ticks attached on you, and then they can be removed before they transmit the diseases, because they have to feed for a little bit before they can actually start to transmit disease agents. So there are other repellents. There are other products that have been developed which actually make the tick not want to attach on you, so they repel the tick. So these are products that are sold that we can purchase. And then there is also clothing. There are different types of clothing that have been impregnated with pesticides or acaricides, such as permethrin. And where the ticks can attach. So these are the areas where if you've gone, say you've gone camping, where can you find them? So you look in these areas where as shown in this picture here or cartoon here, where the ticks are likely to attach. So you go there and inspect and remove them. Now there is I don't have a proper prop on how to detach the tick. So the tick, maybe I'll use my hand. Hopefully that works. So if this is a tick, it's attaching like this on my hand, and then I want to remove it. I don't want to put it this way. I want to go with tweezers, just hold it like here, near the mouth parts, and then twist it like this, and then put it this way, away from that. Because in this way, you have a good chance to remove the tick with the mouth parts. If you don't remove it correctly, the mouth parts might remain in the skin because of that cement, which is anchoring the tick, keeping the tick glued to the skin. So, yeah, check for ticks. Of course, you can't check if you are by yourself. You have to have a mirror to try to check your back. But if there is a friend, they can check. Because as you can see, some of them can be behind your ears or behind your neck. And then you can check yourself, clothing, and gear. What you don't want, the tick may have not attached on you, but when you bring that gear to the house, the tick is on the gear or your clothing, your family in the house, then they become exposed. And then they start wondering, I never went camping. How did I get Lyme disease? You brought it to the house. And then shower. So when you shower, most of the time we're by ourselves in the shower, and the tick is attaching in the back. So they inject those anesthetics. So we may not know it's there unless we feel a bump, and then we want to check out that bump. Then we may miss the tick if it's actually in the back. And then to reduce on our pets, so if we go out, as a person, we have superior grooming abilities. We check ourselves. We can remove things that are attached on us. But what about our pets? They don't have superior grooming abilities. So the tick will just attach on our pets and they'll fit. So once we come back, we can check. We can also inspect our pets and remove or attach ticks. We can remove, or there are several drugs that have been developed, like a collar. We have a collar here, which has acaricides and different shampoos, and that can be applied topicals to kill ectoparasites. There are certain also oral drugs which are given in form of food, and then you give to pets, and then over time, maybe up to 30 days, that pet is protected, and other ticks that try to attach on that pet, on that dog or cat, they are going to die. And of course, checking for ticks. So, mowing the lawn. Where are ticks like to? So if you live, ticks don't. They have. If you are looking at the landscape, they are going to be near shaded areas because they don't want to desiccate. They are outside there. They can lose a lot of water such that they are going to desiccate. So they are going to be in areas that have moisture. That's why they are going to be wetting. So if you've gone camping and you want to sit under a tree, or you want to do something near a tree, that's where the ticks might be wetting to feed. And they also need grass. So if you mow the lawn, then the ticks have nowhere to. You saw that picture, the tick was questing on a piece of grass. So if there's no grass, the tick has nowhere to quest. So to rake the leaves, and then there is no. If we rake the leaves, we expose the ground. There is little moisture, and the ticks actually can desiccate. And then to remove the brush, basically to remove vegetation between the house and to separate the playground, and to provide barriers between the lawn and the wooded areas. So to make sure that there are no hiding places, especially for soft ticks. Soft ticks, unlike hard ticks, they wait for us, and they stay. They are inside in a cabin, and they are waiting. They can stay for months without a blood meal until you show up. So, but for them to stay there, they have to have a hiding place. So if there are no hiding places, then they are not going to be there.
Before you move on to removing ticks, I've got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
The first one goes back to Lyme disease, and they'd like to know what's the most accurate way to test for Lyme disease. They've heard that the regular test is not always accurate.
Yes. So there are several. One of the surest ways to check for the antibody. You can check for antibodies. That just says you've been exposed to Lyme disease. So the other way is if you've gone camping and you've found a tick on you, say after a day or so, and then you become suspicious, do I have Lyme disease? And you go to a physician, they are going to monitor, they are going to take the antibodies, or you make antibodies to the Lyme disease agent after a period of, or maybe after 7 days or so. And then at that point, you start to show antibodies to Lyme disease. They will suspect that you have Lyme at that point. And then the best test is to recover the Lyme disease agent from the patient, which is too late. So you want to see at that point if I have had a tick exposure, a tick bite, and they confirm some antibodies, I want to have antibiotic treatment at that point. Actually, most people, if they have a tick bite, say if we look at that map, On the East Coast, there is a lot of cases of Lyme. And in that area, if I have a black-legged tick on me, I would choose to immediately start antibiotics before I confirm the diagnosis, because I don't know, that will take some time, and I don't know if then I become chronically infected. But if I see a tick, I just go and seek antibiotic treatment, because the disease is very prevalent in that area.
So it's primarily a combination of finding those antibodies and your symptoms.
And the symptoms, and also confirming that you have had a tick bite.
And,
Many
the
people
most
don't
important.
know that they've had a tick bite, because the ticks, they hide. If the tick is attaching on the back here, and when I shower, I don't normally touch that area, and you just ignore it, and it fades and drops off, and you don't know that it's actually transmitting. And also, there is, in some patients, there is a class called the bullseye in Lyme disease that forms. That means that the disease has actually started to progress.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not just one thing.
Yeah,
There are
it's a combination.
Lots of combinations.
Yeah.
And then I had another question. They said, so you've discussed how ticks can spread lots of different diseases. Are there any studies that show that someone who has been infected with a tick-borne disease is more susceptible or at greater risk to developing other blood-borne diseases such as HIV, particularly in our underdeveloped countries?
That's a very interesting question. Actually, I'm not aware of any such studies where they've shown that people who have tick-borne disease are more prone to contract disease such as HIV. We can talk about that. HIV is a kind of is related to behavioral. It's a behavioral kind of disease, because you have to be engaged in certain activities to actually contract HIV for the most part. Sometimes it's because you got a contaminated blood transfusion. But majority of cases are behavioral oriented. For tick-borne diseases, however, it's because you're exposed to an environment which is actually beyond your control. I can see how, if somebody is immunosuppressed, if the tick is actually causing, the tick-borne pathogen is actually causing immunosuppression, and that individual then is prone to actually developing full-blown diseases. I'm not familiar with any such studies,
Right.
but that's a very, very important question. That's a very good question, yeah.
Yeah, if there's any
Yeah.
relevance. So
Yeah.
not that we know of yet, but maybe
Yeah.
that's the study that you need to be doing
Yeah.
as you come up and go to
Yeah.
college and pursue
Yeah.
careers in this field.
Yeah. That's the last question?
That's the last question.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
All right.
Continue.
So basically, to prevent, so removing as quickly as possible, removing the ticks as quickly as possible, that has some relevance, because the transmission of pathogens doesn't really happen immediately after the tick attaches. Now, there are some viruses that can be transmitted that quickly, but for the most part, transmission doesn't happen that quickly. So you can use tweezers, as I was demonstrating on my prop. So you can have tweezers as close to the skin, so near the mouth parts like this, and then you can twist it like that. And then clean the bite area. The reason why the bite area has to be cleaned, because it's going to be an open wound. I remember we discussed about the tick feeding style of inserting the hypostome and creating a wound under the skin, and the blood that leaks into the wound, that's what they suck up to feed. So when you detach the tick, sometimes there is actually going to be a little bit of blood bleeding out. So once you remove, you have to clean that wound so you don't have secondary infection from the bacteria from your skin. So, never crush a tick with your fingers. You can be so annoyed that this tick had the audacity to actually attach onto your skin, and you want to crush it. Because once you crush, you are exposing yourself to everything that was inside that tick. And also the other things, you are going to be very frustrated when you try to crush a tick. It's very hard, especially the ticks. But the most important is the exposure to everything that is inside the tick. And then to avoid everything that you know about ticks and to follow scientific information about the ticks. I think we have here's a video demonstrating removing the tick. This is very, very important because as we go camping or going out there, we're likely to see, and we saw that the ticks are expanding, so there is a high probability that we're going to be exposed. So that's the tick that's attached. Now we have to remove. See? The tick was attached like that. The tweezer was put there, lifted like this, and put it this way, not that way. If you put it in this direction, you are likely to leave the mouthparts in the skin. Okay, this is the same. We can rewatch that clip. It's very important. See the tweezers and pull. Yeah. So all the mouthparts are out. So there is the cattle fever ticks, bovine babesiosis. So remember I told you that in the United States, the animal bovine babesiosis at one time used to be the most important diseases of cattle, but this has been controlled. The cattle fever ticks, the ticks that transmit this disease, they have been controlled for many years in the United States. So these ticks can feed on cattle, white-tailed deer, and other exotic antelopes. Remember those facts, because now they are actually complicating the ability of the U.S. government to control bovine babesiosis, because this disease is still very prevalent in Mexico. So the white-tailed deer and other antelopes that have ticks attached on them from Mexico side of the border, they can cross into the United States and bring these ticks. So that complicates control and prevention. The disease, the parasite is called babesia. This babesia parasite, once it gets in the body, it goes into we have several cells in our blood. We have the blood cells, or the red blood cells. So the babesia parasite gets into the blood inside the red blood cell, and it divides there. It multiplies. Once it multiplies, the cell breaks up, and then all those other parasites, they go to attack other red blood cells. As that progresses, there is a decrease in the number of red blood cells that we have. If you have low blood cells, you have low energy. So if you don't have energy, then it's a production. So in animals, the production of milk starts to decrease. There's weight loss, which means production of meat starts to decrease. And then sometimes there is 70 to 90% of the infected animals actually are going to end up dying. That's why the U.S. government made a concerted effort in the 1940s to actually control this parasite. And for that reason, this parasite has been controlled for more than 50 years. It hasn't been a major problem because the government spends a lot of money to try to keep it out. So it caused a lot of economic problems. And then remember I said the cattle fever ticks and cattle fever parasites are still very prevalent in Mexico. And the U.S. and Mexico, they have they do a lot of business in cattle trade. So to make sure that all the animals that are the cattle that is imported from Mexico, they do not bring with them cattle fever ticks or cattle fever ticks especially, they have to be inspected before they cross the quarantine zone, before they come to the mainland U.S. Now, to make sure that this disease does not spread, there are constant inspections along the U.S.-Mexico border, and these are called quarantine zones. So these animals, these are zones where the disease must be restricted to those areas. So bovine babesiosis has been controlled for more than 50 years. Disease still occurs in Mexico. The government prevents reintroduction by applying quarantine laws. The quarantine laws basically make sure that these are the areas. This is a map from the Texas Animal Health, showing that these are the quarantine zones where the cases of, you can see the green dots showing cases where they have seen the cattle fever ticks being reported. So the idea is to make sure that these quarantine laws gives the government power to restrict, to make sure that if they find that at your property some of the animals they have cattle fever ticks, that property will be under quarantine laws, which means animals cannot be moved out of the property. So these are the different types. The deep tank. This is a deep tank here. It's containing chemicals to kill ticks. So the animals, they take a dive in this, and then they can the chemicals in the tank or the parasites, they kill the ticks on the animal. And this is a pen. You can also topically apply their parasites. So there is also you remember the ticks when the ticks feed, they pump all these kind of things in the animal. So we can make, people are doing research to find the most important of those proteins in tick saliva, and then you can use those to immunize humans and immunize animals. The idea is that if you've been immunized against tick proteins, when the tick comes to feed, it will not feed and it will not transmit. So this research is going on on the A&M campus. In fact, my laboratory is actually specialized in trying to make vaccines that block ticks from transmitting pathogens. We have worked now to try to do some vaccines against babesia, against Lyme disease, and so so if you one day decide to come to the A&M campus to pursue your higher education here, you can check me out, and we have opportunities for you, waiting for you. We want you to come and develop this vaccine.
So they want to know the vaccines you're talking about are maybe different than other vaccines where you're vaccinating against a specific disease. In this case, you're vaccinating against the tick itself?
Yes.
It's very interesting.
That's a very good question. So we can make a vaccine against all the different pathogens that the tick transmits. Or we can just, that's my phone. Let me turn it off. Okay. So I was saying, so we have, the tick has all these things that it's transmitting. So we can target each one individually and make vaccines. or we can just shut down the tick itself. Because the tick is pumping all these proteins, so once we shut down the tick, then we have prevented transmission of all these other different pathogens to go into the animal. So that's the idea. I love that question. That's a very, very, very insightful question. Very nice.
And a very unique perspective. I think these kids maybe not have heard before, because we get a flu vaccine or we get a chicken pox vaccine.
Yes.
But instead, we're vaccinating not against the specific virus necessarily, but the vector.
The vector
host.
itself, the tick itself. Stop the tick from feeding. Once we stop the tick from feeding, we stop it from transmitting. So that's the research that is going on in the vet school, in the College of Veterinary Medicine here on the A&M campus.
Yeah, very interesting. So this is a future career path for some of you that are interested in parasitology and animal health and things like this. Quite a different direction than maybe you've heard before, and maybe something that will be of interest to you and something you can pursue.
Yes. Very interesting. Very nice question.
All right, well.
Okay, now, you remember when I jumped again, I went to that. Now we bring the questions.
We're really there.
Well, yeah.
They've been asking a great deal of questions throughout our presentation, so we don't have any more at the moment. And so I think we're going to wrap it up. We thank you so much for being here with us today, and we appreciate your patience with us, and hope that you've learned some new and interesting facts that maybe will spur your career and your interest in animal health and human health and other related fields. So thanks again for being here with us today. If you'd like to learn more about human or animal health or veterinary science, we encourage you to visit our website. It's peer.tamu.edu. And we look forward to seeing you next time when Dr. Coleman will talk to us about equine internal medicine. Thanks again for joining us.